I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the Will Gather podcast. Moving our loved ones into a senior living community can be one of the most challenging experiences that we go through. We are trying to figure out how to manage not only the move, selling our house, organizing, downsizing, discarding, and then possibly donating all that we've acquired in our lifetime. There can be an immense emotional toll that this process can have, not only on us as adult children, but our loved ones as well. Today, my guest is Maureen Longoria. She is the co-founder of LivNow Relocation. They have over 50 years of corporate relocation experience. They understand the complexity and all that goes into this phase of life. Maureen understands how stressful and overwhelming, especially for older adults, this experience can be. Today, we have the opportunity to talk about what are some of those common challenges that we face when we go through this relocation process, how we handle the emotional toll that this process can have on us as families and also our older adults, why at times having a third party can be helpful as we're navigating this emotional move, and what advice we would give to adult children who are navigating this process with their aging loved ones for the first time, and what the process looks like from that initial consultation until that move-in, and how they're staying up to date on the latest trends and best practices, and what the future of senior living relocation services will look like, and the many ways this profit-for-purpose company supports families. We also talk about how we have some of those conversations and how to approach this experience with compassion and empathy. Here is my interview with Maureen Longoria. Hi, Maureen. I'm so happy the day has finally come. We are looking forward to this conversation, and I'm really happy you're here. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, Nicole, thank you. I'm so honored to be here and to be a part of your podcast. And I know I feel like it flew by though. I know we planned this a couple months ago, but the time flew.
I know it does. I feel like it's that time of year. We were just saying that it feels like there's momentum and busyness and all the things happening, which is great. I think springtime, we do that. We get rejuvenated by, you and I are both in the northern part of the country, and winter, it can be a little, get a little long. So here we are in spring. This topic for me, I know it's so important. And for families, it's such a big deal when we have our loved ones, this event, moving, downsizing, all of the things that we have to consider. This is incredibly overwhelming. And I think families really need that support. So I'm so happy we get to talk about it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, you're right. I think it's lost sometimes people just how challenging it is, right? And how complicated and emotional this particular move is.
Mm-hmm.
Relocation is the third most stressful event of your life after death and divorce. And
Wow.
that's just for anybody. But usually when this is going to be the last move for people, and then they're also usually downsizing, it just adds a different element, right? That becomes even more complicated, emotional.
It does. I know. So we're going to get into all those aspects. First, tell us more about you and how you came into then wanting to support families in this transition. I would love to hear more about that.
Oh, thanks. Well, so my background is in corporate relocation, and so is my co-founder, Lisa Burns. And actually everybody on our management team, we all have over 20, dare I say 25 years of corporate relocation experience, all in different aspects. Mine was working for relocation management companies, but I also did logistics, relocation, global stuff, and I worked in the technology space in relocation, expense processing, like just about every aspect. And other people on my team have backgrounds in corporate housing, property management. Our product owner is a relocation technology person. Our VP of Ops was a real estate and relocation management. So we all had that background. And what we discovered a few years ago was that here was this population whose move, like I said, was gonna be the most complicated and emotional move of their life. Yet they weren't being given the same support that anyone that was relocating for their job was given.
Wow.
So we just saw an opportunity to bring that corporate class service
Mm-hmm.
to that population and supporting the seniors, but in addition to the, the family, this is just a very, when you have families that aren't able to be readily there to help their parents, right?
Mm.
How do they go about doing it? And it just, there was nobody out there that was providing that nationwide support for them. And so anyway, we saw that and we wanted to make a difference. The other big thing that affected us was we would be at events talking to seniors and they would say, oh, honey, I'd love to move in here, but it's just too much.
Yeah.
What will I do with all my stuff? My husband and I built this house 40 years ago. I don't even know where to begin to get it ready, or my house needs updating. And so we would hear them as they were visiting the community. They knew that they wanted to get rid of the upkeep of the house, right? And the expense of it, but the chores behind it. They knew that they wanted the socialization that a community could offer. They knew that they wanted to be in an environment where they didn't have to worry about making their dinner again. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They really wanted to be there. So many people we talked to, we felt wanted to be there, but couldn't get themselves from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to bother their children who were like you, Nicole, and me, who
Right.
had our own family, who were going a million miles a minute because now, kids are 10 times more active than they used to be. And plus we had jobs, right? Didn't want to lean into their children. So that's why we named the company Live Now, because we really wanted to help them live their best life now by helping them get from their home to the community, letting them know we will provide them with all the support they need and resources, and so that they could live their best life now. And then we actually paused for a minute because we said, okay, we call the company Live Now because we're going to help them. But what about the people going into memory care? Are we helping them live their best life now by helping them to get to the community? And we came to the conclusion that we 1000%. We're going to help them also live their best life now, because I personally saw it with my brother-in-law's mom and how she was in a condo rather than in the community. And once they got her to the community, she really started to thrive.
Yeah.
She was getting the meals that she needed regularly. She was being, she got to the beauty salon and she got all those things. So we said, yep, if we can help them get to a wonderful community, they will live their best lives then in that community. So that's why we stuck with Live Now.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad you did. And I love the perspective of why are we not giving this population that first class service like we do with those other populations, and how important it is to elevate that, right? We all deserve to have quality products and care and businesses that interact with us. Do you see that there's common challenges that families face and older adults face when they're going through this process, and what does that look like when we want to address that?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are, first of all, it's who do we lean into? We need a mover. We know a lot of times they have a home to sell. We need a real estate agent. A lot of people are unaware that there are organizers, downsizers, because it usually starts with that. Like before they can even think about putting their home on the market, like, I can't take all this with me, because they're always downsizing, right? So I can't take all this with me, but what do I do with it?
Right.
What do I do with the furniture that I'm not taking with me? Now I've got to sort through the pictures, and what do I do with my picture wall with all the kids on it? I probably can't take it all with me. So so many of them are unaware that there are people out there through NAPO, National Association of Professional Organizers, or NASM, National Association of Senior Move Managers, people that specialize in helping you determine what you are going to take with you and what to do with all the things that you can't take with you. And maybe some of it could be an estate sale if it's things of value, high in value, or so many things can get repurposed, but you're 85 years old. How are you going to manage that, right? And then usually the adult children has no idea that these people exist. So what happens is they're actually feeling like they have to do all that work, all that heavy lifting. So once we tell them, no, there's people that we can tap into that can do that for you. They're so really, now that process can move that much more quickly. Okay, great. Now let's talk to a realtor about what's the value of the home, so we can start to get an idea of how much equity mom or dad might have in that home to pay for the care. And, let's look at how long it'll take to sell it. So it's us pulling all that logistic together, but the common denominator is honestly, they're so overwhelmed by how do we start biting off chunks of this
Yeah.
to move it forward? And the first thing they think of is, it's gonna take me months to go through this house and to do all that. And I know, because I did that for my parents a little over 10 years ago, and it was me and 3 sisters that went at it, right? And
Mhm.
just you do this, I'll do that, well, and just got after it. And I'm talking about, it was several months of us spending any time that we could over there, while we're also raising our kids and working full time,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Getting through all this stuff. So I think that's it. It's just, they just don't know where to begin, and they just look at it as this massive project in front of them.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I remember my Aunt Dot, who was my grandma's sister. My grandma lived with our family when I was growing up, and she had traveled the world and had everything from her travels and was moving from California to Minnesota. And that took so much time and stress figuring out what did she want to keep, what was going to fit in her new apartment, a
Mhm.
lifetime's worth of memories and things that are so meaningful. So actually, if you look around my house, I have the gold medallion. That is my Aunt Dot's. I wanted to take as much as I could to repurpose and keep, those memories alive. I know we always can't do that. There's an emotional toll. And I remember seeing sadness in her eyes when we had to go through all of those things. So, do you have any recommendations, like how, when you're walking through this process with families, do we manage that emotional toll that process can have? Not only the moving and downsizing, but we're parting with some of our precious things and memories. Is there advice on how we get through some of that?
You're right. So that's the other aspect when I say it's the most complicated, because you gotta downsize all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? Chances are you sold your home in 40 years, you don't even know where to begin. How do I find a reputable mover? There's all these road movers. But then there's the emotional aspect, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
and it is hard, and it's not just hard on the senior that's moving, it's hard on the kids, because usually that's the home they grew up in, and there's a lot of memories in there for them. And so what we did to address that is, senior living communities spend a lot of time and money on training their sales team to bring empathy to the process, right?
Mm.
They're not just selling an apartment that somebody's going to move into. They understand the emotions behind it, and they're trained very well
Mm-hmm.
on how to listen and help them move forward in that process. And so we did something very similar. We hired a sales consultant and asked them to build out a program specifically for us to train our team on
Mm.
bringing that empathy to the process. And what we really learned is that we call it our empathy in action program. What we learned is, for people to be able to move forward, they need to feel validated. In order to feel validated, they need to feel seen and heard.
Mm.
We do is we really spend time listening to the stories and acknowledging how they're feeling. And doing that, they can start to move forward. And we are really sensitive to that, understanding giving up that dining room table. It's a big deal. I'm sorry, it's a big
Mm-hmm.
deal, knowing that they're not going to be hosting those family dinners anymore, things like that. And so our team is super sensitive to that and spend a lot of time. That's why we're trying to automate anything that doesn't have to do with speaking to the senior and their family and helping them sort through all of that. We don't want our people wasting time on, other things. We just want them to be able to be there and be present for them so they can be acknowledged. The one huge piece of advice I would have for the adult children is just take the stuff. To your point, you have that medallion, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times a move will get stopped in its tracks, because if the senior can feel like their stuff is being repurposed and gonna
Yeah.
be used, they can move forward. But when they feel like it's just going into a landfill,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, that's so emotionally hard for them.
Yeah.
Um, so I always say, take the china,
Yeah.
take the crystal.
Yeah.
You could do something with it later, but say, Mom, I'd love to have it.
Yeah.
It will move that process forward. I can't even tell you. And we made that mistake with my mom. We absolutely made it with my
Mm-hmm.
mom. And I wish, we could go back and be more sensitive, because we're like, "Mom, it's just stuff." Well, that was so insensitive of us to say that, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And I think our generation will be different. We won't be as attached to our stuff,
Hmm.
but you have to think about that generation, that baby boomer generation. And, they came out of the depression. And so as they collected these things, the Yadros, that was very symbolic for them.
Hmm.
And so as much as we can do to validate it. So when the kids don't want the stuff, we talk about how we're going to repurpose it and how we're
Hmm.
going to get it to a charitable organization. There's so many wonderful charities out there that work with people with within the homeless population, where they get them housing, or immigrants that come into our country and they set up apartments for them. All of those things can be repurposed in
Yeah.
such a beautiful way for them. So we have those conversations, and once they know that somebody will value those things, they can let them go,
Right.
and so that's a big part of it too, is just helping them understand, maybe they don't have kids to give it to, but we're gonna find a place, and there is gonna be a family that is gonna really appreciate those
Mm.
things. And not only appreciate it, but you're gonna be doing something so great for them, as
Hmm.
they move into their new apartment or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, coordinating that for them, yeah, it's
That's,
huge.
oh my gosh. And the focus, and one thing, not one thing, there were many things that drew me to your business, but I love the focus on people first and making sure that that is a priority and that the empathy is there and the training with that. It's so important. And so thank you for having that perspective. And also, it's I love your advice on take the stuff. I've done that with people. I had a girlfriend of mine and her mom was moving and downsizing, and I just everything that she handed to me, I was like, "Okay, yes, I'll take it." And I used some of it, and some of it I've found other ways to repurpose that, and I think it meant so much to her that I was able to take that. And to your point, I think when we know our things are valued to some extent, then it makes it a little bit easier to let that go and to have that gift live on in many different ways. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. For families, I think too, having almost that third party, so a company like yours, step in probably alleviates some of the maybe conflict or I'm trying to think of the words to use. As we're going through things like that with our family, there could be maybe disagreement over kind of what we want to do or family dynamics. And so having that third party be present maybe makes some of that a little bit easier. Do you find that to be true?
My gosh, 1000%,
Yeah.
Nicole. I love, there's a story somebody told me once about a senior that came in with her daughter to look at a community, and the senior, the mom was complaining the whole time of this, grumping the whole entire time. They get to the end of the tour, and the daughter says, "All right, why don't I just go get the car and pull it around?" 'Cause they're on the other side of the building. And the daughter left, and the mom turns to the sales director and says, "Oh, I love it here. This is great. Move in." And like, daughter,
Oh
I'm
my
sure,
goodness.
like, when she finally told the daughter she was gonna move in, the daughter was like, but it was the oppositional sort of relationship, right? Where like
Yes.
she was not gonna admit to the daughter that this looked great and she was interested. It was classic, but that there's those
Oh.
dynamics, right? And so if we get in the middle of it, it just makes it
Mhm.
so much easier. And then with
Mhm.
our technology too, now the daughter can go on and look at the moving estimates, so they don't even have to ask,
Mhm.
like, the parent gives the adult children permission to see this information. They
Mm.
can go in there, they can look at it, they can make sure everything's good without having to worry about, "Oh, hey, mom, can you send me that information?" And, well, no, I got this. I told you I got this, right?
Exactly. I know. I when I worked in senior living, I was a director and oversaw some departments, and we would have new people move in. And this one family, I remember, they every time they would see their loved one would say that they weren't doing anything and they didn't love it there and all of the things. And but this person was very much involved and had a smile on their face when they were interacting with me. And it was such an interesting contrast. And
Yeah,
also, it made me think about, not only are there complicated family dynamics, but also when we want maybe to spend time with our loved one, we might diminish other ways we're being involved in things because we really want to and have that time with them. So to your point, yes. A third party stepping in can be so helpful for people to keep that in mind. And are there ways that, let's say, they've never walked through this with family before, or even the older adult themselves, tips on navigating this process for the first time? Where do we start? What do we do?
Yeah, so that's where our services come in, right? If the community offers our services, it just makes it so much easier to start there, because what happens is if the community doesn't offer that sort of support, they hand them a card, and say, oh, here's a realtor, here's a senior move manager. Perfect example. I have a girlfriend whose parents moved into a community that has assisted living memory care because the mom needed memory care. And the dad was fine though. But they knew they needed to make that move, and the dad said, fine. But then he checked out. So now the daughter picked the community, she got them moved in, picked what stuff would go with them. And now the daughter, instead of being able to spend time in the community, making sure dad really got settled well, right, with mom, she didn't even know that there were resources out there. And so she's figuring this all out on her own. So first she does the search for the community, looks at 6 different communities, visits 6 different communities, decides on the community, gets them moved in. Now she's like, okay, now the house, I gotta check the house. Now, mind you, the parents were in a community an hour and 15 minutes away from where she lived. Every single day she drove there, and she just started to unpack the issues in the house, like one room after another. Okay. So she did something that we could have paid somebody to do. That's what these professional organizers do, right? They could have been doing that for her, and she could have been helping the parents settle into the community. She could have instead have been in the community every day, making sure dad was doing okay. And you know what I mean? And things were going well there. And so she's like, I didn't even know these things existed, Maureen. Like, I didn't know where, I did the research. I called 6 different movers, and she was not one returned my phone call. Like, they're not going to, because there's just so little there. You know what I mean? That's where you just need to have those resources available to you. And movers are so busy, right? You need that preferential treatment. And I think that if you don't have a service like ours available, it just starts with awareness that there's a lot to handle here, and there are resources available, and maybe just start doing the research in that area. Ask the community. A lot of times they are familiar with organizations, and you can reference, my parents are moving into this community, I really could use some help. When you call that mover, if that mover has worked within that community before, that certainly would help hopefully get a return phone call. Hopefully they know a professional organizer that could help the family. So I would say lean into the community and ask them, do you have any of these resources available? But I also would suggest you have to do your homework, because not all of them have licenses to do the business, and these communities haven't thoroughly vetted them. That's not their job. Right. So you want to make sure, if the community said, oh, this mover's, a couple of people have used this mover, it went well. Well, okay, but now you got to go and I would say, look at the Better Business Bureau. Make sure, there aren't any issues with them. Look at the Yelp reviews, look at the Google reviews. These are all the things that we do to vet these providers. Look at their Department of Transportation number. It should be on their website, prominently displayed. You ask for their certificate of insurance to make sure they're fully insured. Things happen. They happen with good movers, they happen with bad movers. But you want to make sure that if something goes wrong and the truck blows up, and mind you, these things, like I said, it does happen, that they were insured and stuff like that. So, I would say start by asking the community, do you have these? And then you're going to have to still do the research and make sure that there's good reviews and that they're reputable people. And most importantly, that they are licensed and that they do background checks on the people that are going to go into the home, especially if you can't be there with your parent. Make sure that that senior move manager or that mover does background checks on their employees that are going into your parents' home. That's a really big thing. With real estate agents, you don't have to worry about that. If you're going to a reputable real estate firm, that is covered. More on the movers and whatnot, especially if you're doing a cross-state move and you're using a national, don't go with the cheapest one. Those are usually road movers. Or if they're asking for cash up front, you know what I mean? Things like this. Cheaper isn't always better, because a lot of times those road mover situations, what they're going to do is put your parents' stuff on a truck, and then they're going to say, by the way, you owe us $1,000 more or $2,000 more, and you can't get their stuff off the truck until you pay it. That's happened to, there was an executive in senior living who goes, I thought I was smarter. I thought I did my homework, and that happened to me. I would say that the next step is, if the community is recommending them, still do your homework and make sure that those things exist. because that's super important.
Yeah, that's really good advice because there's going to be pockets of our country where we don't have access to a company like yours. So you work with senior living communities where you are an extended resource for them to be able to share and support families. And also you work with older adults and families in the community and in their home that need that support. Is that correct? Yeah.
So right now, all of our clients come through our partner communities.
Okay.
So we work with over 50 client communities around within 22 states right now. And
Yeah.
so we'll constantly bring out new ones. So we'll work with a senior living community in any area of the country, in any state, and then they offer our services to
Wonderful.
the seniors coming in. So right now, we're not offering our services B2C directly
Okay.
to, however,
Yeah.
we do intend to, as we build out our market across the country, then we will go back and we will start offering it to anyone that wants access to it. It will look a little bit differently, but we will. And then we'll also offer it, and this is a huge population too,
Hmm.
Nicole, for families that maybe are have to deal with a parent that passed away.
Mm,
They
absolutely.
go
Yeah.
through this too.
Yeah.
A lot of times they don't even live in the same state where their parent maybe
Hmm.
passed, and they've got to
Hmm.
manage through this. So there's this huge population out there that isn't getting access to these vetted
Yes.
great resources. And like I said, half of them don't even know some of these resources exist, like the professional organizers that will go in and clean out the home for them and all that.
Right.
They have no idea it exists. So yeah, that's the next step and what we're intending to do here.
Yes. And there's so much peace of mind that comes with when you've got someone that can step in, manage the logistics. And most of us are caregiving long distance. So when we manage that from a distance, we feel especially disconnected and really want to make sure that the oversight is vetted, background checks, all that you guys do, which is so important. And I love that you have I was reading about the profit for purpose. Can you share more about that with
Yeah,
us?
thanks for mentioning that. So yeah, Move for Hunger is a program that was offered in corporate housing, and what they would do is when you would move from one state to another, a lot of times you realize, like, why do I have 6 cans of chili beans? You know, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing in your cupboard. So they would ask them, put it to the side. So we brought that program to senior living, and especially when a senior's moving into a community, they don't need a lot of the food that might be in their pantry anymore because there's going to be meals there and whatnot. So we just have them put it to the side, and then our movers will grab it on move-in day, and they will weigh it at their facility, at their warehouse. They'll weigh it and they'll get it to the local food bank, and we'll track it for the community. So us with Move for Hunger are bringing that program in. It's been really fun, Nicole, because we have one event this month. One of our communities is just doing a Move for Hunger event. And in November, we had a community that they always gave out a pie to, like, if a senior came to the community, they'd give them a pie. We said, well, why don't you tie it in with the Move for Hunger program? So
Yeah.
they brought canned goods and they got a pie, and came to the community, got a pie. And we've, brought a lot of food, 100 pounds of food to the local food
Wow.
bank. As
Oh,
a,
incredible.
so we're doing that. We're also, anytime we collect a real estate referral fee, when a senior goes through our real estate program, we're putting that money into a charitable giving program, and we give it back to the community's benevolent fund or charity of choice at the end of the year.
Mm,
So we brought that to it too. And then we also make sure that when the professional organizers find things that can be repurposed, we make sure that we work with discard and donate firms that will repurpose it and not bring it to a local landfill. We had a senior tell a story. He went back to his house that day during move-in day, and he saw the discard and donate company literally breaking the legs off of a table because they were just going to put it in a landfill rather than bring it to a charitable organization where it could get repurposed. And so we wanted to make sure that that was happening anytime we're involved in the process. So that's why we call ourselves a profit for purpose company,
mm.
because we brought that sustainability and that charitable giving to what we're doing.
Oh, so good. And I love that heart for that. I have the We'll Gather Wishes, and we always take part of our proceeds and donate to nonprofits that support family caregivers because there's something about when you're doing good work to be able to extend that. And when we do that, it's like that ripple effect into the community of goodness and abundance. And I love that. So I wanted to highlight that for sure. Thank you. Thank you.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. We
Yeah.
had one community start they have a fund for their employees for education scholarship fund. So one of
Wonderful.
our checks went to their community for that. And that was really cool to see
Oh,
that.
so cool. It's so cool. I love the stories about that. And I hope it inspires other people to think about, okay, what can I do in my community to make a difference? You spoke to this a little bit in the beginning, but walk us through what is the process like? So from that first initial interest or consult to the end, and you have a really cool app that families can we can also look and see the process. So share with us what that is like.
Yeah, absolutely. It really starts, our communities a lot of times bring us in during prospecting because they know. We had a CMO recently say, okay, team, come on, you know that the community down the street isn't your competition. It's the house.
Yeah.
Like, so they usually will bring us in during prospecting to start having that conversation so that the potential resident understands that they have the support. So let's overcome the objection, that objective, right in the beginning. Like, we got resources for you, so let's not make that your stuff in the house. Stop, right? So anyway, they'll introduce them to us, and we start really, it's just that it's the discovery call up front to just understand what's their story, what's their situation, right?
Mm.
What's their biggest concern? That's what we uncover that very first call. What's your biggest concern, right? And then we talk through how we can support them. And then we talk through, okay, this is your biggest concern, so let's start there. And maybe it's, I don't know how much my home is worth, or I'm afraid they're gonna tell me that I need to update it, and there's just too much, you know. So if that's the case, then what we'll do is have a real estate agent go out there and talk to them about their home and how they can use. Because if we're working with full-time top producing agents, they have these marketing resources at their fingertips, and they'll say, I can use a virtual renovation resource.
Mm.
So don't worry about your kitchen. We can still put your house on the market, you know, and we're gonna use that virtual renovation to update your kitchen.
Mm.
So that when those millennials sit on their couch and swipe through, they're gonna see a beautiful kitchen.
Oh, very
That's not
cool.
gonna- You know, that's not gonna stop them from wanting to come and see your beautiful home, because your home is
Mm.
beautiful and it has great bones, and, you know, they're gonna wanna make it their own anyhow, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
So if that was their biggest concern, that's where we're gonna focus our time and attention. If their biggest concern is just, honey, I've got so much stuff, you
Hmm.
know, what am I gonna do? Then we're gonna start with, we would like to have a professional organizer come into your home and talk to you. They're gonna give you 1 free hour consultation and talk to you about how they can help you through that, right? So it kind of starts there, Nicole, like
Yeah.
understanding what it is. And so then, like I said, we call it empathy in action. So every time we get off the phone, then, okay, so we just want to confirm, this is what we agreed, this is gonna be the next step. So I'm gonna have that realtor, they're gonna give you a call tomorrow. Here's their name, they're gonna come out, you know what I mean? And
Oh,
so
so
just kind of
good.
walk them through, and step by step, we chunk it out, you know, if you will. That's what some of our relocation specialists say,
Yeah,
because
makes
you
it
don't,
manageable. Yeah.
you have to say, so this is our first step. Okay, now this will be our next step. And that
Hmm.
way, I mean, I don't know about you, but that's the way I like to work too. You know, you don't want to overwhelm anyone. I don't want to be
Absolutely.
overwhelmed. I can do this, you know,
Hmm.
okay, let's do this. And so
Hmm.
that's really how we walk through the process. And then our whole job is to educate and advocate. That's why we're here. We're not going in there and doing the professional organizing. We're not going in there and telling them what their homes were. We're vetting the suppliers that are going in there and doing that. Our job is to educate and advocate. So we're making sure, you know, that the realtor that goes in is a top-notch realtor who's gonna be able to provide the resources, but also who has a heart for working with
Yeah.
seniors, right?
Yeah.
And so our job is just to help them sort through all that information then that comes through and
Hmm.
make the best decisions for themselves. We're always advocating for them. So perfect example is cancellation, admin, marketing fees. You see these in real estate contracts now. They never used to be in there, but it's,
Mm.
people just sign away and they don't realize, because it's coming off the closing statement, they don't have to write a check up front, so it's
Yeah.
not alerting them. And they don't know that this maybe could be negotiated out, so all our agreements, it's negotiated out. The senior doesn't have to worry about this, so we're immediately saving them money.
Right.
We're making sure the listing agreement is no more than 120 days. Why is that important? Well, what if the senior decides after they're in this process and you know, their home is still on the market, maybe that agent isn't for me after all,
Hmm.
for whatever reason. Well, then they can get out of that agreement in
Yeah.
3 or 4 months rather than being stuck in an agreement for a year.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's our job, is to advocate for them, to make
Hmm.
sure that they have choices and, you know, they're making good decisions. We'll do all the heavy lifting.
Hmm.
and get the information in their hands between them and their adult children to make them good decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's our role throughout the entire process. So we introduce the suppliers as they're needed in the process, making sure that they're really great suppliers, and then helping them sort through that information to make the best decisions for themselves in this
Right.
situation.
Right. So helpful. Do you ever have people that or families that say, "I don't know how to talk to mom and dad about moving or downsizing," and get your support on that? What do you say to them? What advice would you give them on how to start that conversation?
That's a really good question. We haven't, usually by the time we're talking to the senior, we haven't really been on there with the adult children. And if we're talking to the adult children, it's usually because the senior isn't going to be involved in managing that process. But I think that what would put the parents' mind at ease, if I were to have that conversation, is just letting them know that we've got it. Because they don't want to burden the child. So if the adult child just says, mom, it's not going to be a burden, we have resources and we're going to take care of this for you. And then, like I said, just let them know, a lot of times it's just, what am I going to do with my stuff? And they say, mom, you know what, we're going to take, I'm dying to have your china and your silver. But I mean, stuff like that, that certainly helps. But I would say just to let them know, it's not going to be a burden on me, because I think that's the thing that the adult child is, or the senior is most concerned about. They don't want to burden. So if they just put their mind at ease, hey, we got this. This is not hard.
Yeah.
We don't want you to have to worry about keeping up the house. We want you to be able to go and play mahjong and bridge and have all these activities available to you. We don't want you to have to worry about driving at night. Putting their mind at ease that, we want this for them, because we want them to have, the ability to be living a full life. And if they don't feel like they're living a full life at home, I would say that would be the best advice, is just tell them we want this for you and don't worry. We got it.
Yes.
Easy.
Exactly. And if families are listening and it's not in the senior living community where they are, they can always say, I always tell families, like, speak up and request the services that you want to see. And so they can say to the senior living community, reach out to this company, have them be a part of your partner network. I think as families, we are needing to use our voice, right? And speak up for the things that we want to see, knowing that everyone has great intentions, but might not be aware of even what's available. So I think that's important. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Nicole, because I will tell you, my friends were completely unaware that there are things like senior move managers and professional organizers. I mean, I had one friend at book club say, my sister still has PTSD from
Oh, yeah.
Have another friend who said, I'm not even talking to my brother, I'm just so irritated, all he wanted to know was where were the proceeds from the sale of the home. He didn't lift a finger to help me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the beautiful thing about our technology is a family will be able to go in there and manage this process together.
Right.
No more texts and emails and back and forth. Hey, just go on the mobile platform. You'll see the moving estimate.
Yeah.
You'll see the comparative market analysis. Here's who we're recommending we go with for a realtor. There's 2 comparative market analysis in there. We like this. Mom liked this realtor better. We're good with it. Her comparative market analysis made sense. We're going with this mover. We got 2 quotes. You'll see them in there. The reason we're going with this mover is because I know they're a little more expensive, but they put our mind at ease. I think they'll do a great job, and mom really liked them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now they have a place to go instead of this big 3-ring binder and emailing each other this information, texting each other about it. Nope, there's going to be one platform, organize it all through this one platform, and it'll just make life so much easier for everybody involved in that process.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much so. How do you keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening, in the relocation space? And what are you excited about? What do you see as the future and see it evolving and growing?
That's a really great question. So because we've been in that space for so long, we do have our finger on the pulse of real estate. We're constantly monitoring that through the National Association of Realtors. There's great publications out there that give us updates all the time, what's happening. So that keeps our fingers on the pulse. And certainly there's associations involved in relocation that we're a part of. Understanding that we got our finger on the pulse, like, same thing with the movers. They have their own association that, we get all that information from. So we do keep our fingers on the pulse of this, but especially because the real estate market affects seniors, right? Because it affects the communities.
Yeah.
When the real estate market starts to tank, the communities get very concerned that seniors not gonna be able to sell their home, or the senior's concerned, am I gonna sell it for as much as I thought I could? So that's a really big aspect of it that we stay really closely in tune.
Right.
But the movers too, because every time we work with a community and they're doing an expansion or a new development, they need to move a lot of people in at once.
Mhm.
I cringe when they say, oh, we're thinking about July, like, oh, not July. Because the corporate relocations, the bulk of the corporate relocations happen during the summer months when the kids are out of school.
Mm,
It's crazy busy.
yeah.
And so, we've got our fingers on the pulse of that too. Like, what's happening? Are they gonna be able to handle any local moves this summer? The local movers, because are they too busy managing the national moves that summer? How do we make sure we get priority? So yes, so we have a one person right now, soon to expand that, dedicated just to supply chain, and keeping our fingers on the pulse of this and making sure that the suppliers that we have in place will prioritize our moves, prioritize our seniors. That's a huge part of what we do. And like I said, that whole vetting process, keeping up with their certificates of insurance to make sure that, they're still insured, they're still doing background checks. And that's a big aspect of what we do. And we just sent out our quarterly newsletter to our suppliers, letting them know what we're up to and sharing testimonials with them from the seniors, because they love to see that feedback. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it keeps us moving forward. That positive reinforcement. Where can we learn more? Where can people connect with you guys?
Just going on our website, LivNow Relocation, LivNow relocation.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can see a lot of our updates there. We do Testimonial Tuesday, and you can always see an update as we launch new add-ons. So we partner with OfferPad for iBuy solutions when people need it. We have a bridge loan through NJ Lenders and the Mark Myman Group. So all of that information is put out too on LinkedIn and our Instagram and our Facebook to share that. We just partner with Presidio, which is an iCloud vault to store all these documents.
Yeah.
So all that information can be found on our website. That is really great additional information that people can access there as well. Lots of great articles. How do you interview an agent? How do you avoid a rogue mover? Tons of articles on there about that sort of stuff that people can be tapping into, and feel free to use to send to their prospects and incoming residents if they want.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for approaching this hard experience with compassion and empathy. It's incredibly important. So thank you for the visit today. I appreciate it.
Oh, Nicole, I am so grateful for this opportunity, and thank you very much for having me and letting people know about LivNow, because we really, we do have seniors that come to us and one-off, and we are absolutely delighted to help them. So we are not going to turn anybody down, and I appreciate just getting the word out there that we exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.